Sangwale. That is how we went to our campaign. Why new? We are not a traditional political party like the others, who has billions of money to spend, which are robbed from all of us, and spend now within the next 4 months to earn again by robbing. So we are not that category. This is a foundation for our long march. We want to win. But after that, we are going to continue in our parliament elections and other elections as well. That is the way that we are looking at. We are using the technology methodology as word of mouth, social media, YouTube, handbills. We are marching from house to house. True, still they may not be knowing, but we are looking at the population between 18 to 40 years who are on the social media all the time more than their work. They are the people who influence their families, nobody else. When we were youngsters, our parents used to tell us what to do. Today, the children will tell the father and the mother what to do. So I wish that next 2 weeks' time, we'll be able to reach quite a high target in that.
So, Mr. Sinaka,
can I just add few words? First, we have to understand the purpose of Mahesh Senanayake bringing in here as an alternative force. Now, we have already established 3 major giants, that is the SLPP, UNF, and NPP. Amidst that, why there was another 4th candidate that was brought in? Because this is any other political forum, what happens is that we try to convince the audience. We try to convince the audience to get their vote. But this is nothing like that. Because this is your move. This is our move. We talk very clearly, this is a people-centric movement. So each and every one of you have the same obligation and the same responsibility as a messenger to take this message to the wherever possible, to the best of your ability. As he quite rightly said, we don't have that money. We have been working for the last 5 years to bring it up to this level. Although we contacted him after on his retirement, there was a group of dedicated people, those who have worked over the last 5 years to make it a reality. Even now, you won't imagine with this corrupted system the type of offers some of those established parties, what they offer even to the team right now. I mean, if we want to do that, we could have joined any one of these alternative forces and do that. This is a beginning for a change. So it is not going to be easy. So we would earnestly pleading to each and every one of you, please do your part, communicate this, take this message wherever the way you can to the rural areas, to your kith and kins, your relatives. It is the responsibility of each and every one of us. We will try our level best, but at least the minimum, this should be a beginning of a new change. Thank you.
thank you for that.
Yes.
One question, Mr. Senanayake. In the fortunate event of you becoming the president of this country, you will have to work with the cabinet. You will have to work with the cabinet. And that cabinet will come from the legislature. And that legislature will be a political party, which has the highest number of seats in the parliament. Now, when you chair the cabinet meeting, you're going to be seen as an outsider there. Now, is that going to have an impasse between you and the cabinet, where you are accepted? Well, it's a political party. Now, we had an experience of such impasse in the recent past with Sirisena and Ranil Wickremesinghe not hitting it off. So where do we go from there? You become the president, you have a cabinet, which is a politicized cabinet. You're apolitical, you don't belong to them. How are you going to work with them?
Thank you. In fact, even under the 19th Amendment, my appointment as the president will be, as you said, to a party. I don't belong to any party, but I'll be very independent in that. But the powers that the president has, it is still there. For a simple example, reducing the number of the cabinet to 20, that is, it could be done by the president. So that is the very first step that I am taking to ensure that the president has the powers. Whoever may be in the cabinet, who may be having the conferences in the house, once you get the people's vote to be the president, then I have to practice that to the book by sitting there, to lead by example, to say, this is the power that I have, you better do it. I understand your question. Till maybe next March, April, we have to run with the existing parliament. It will not be that easy, but I believe a person like me, I have the guts to fight with anybody in this country. But some of the presidents don't have it. They have no purpose, but they didn't do it. That is why we have come out and get involved in such a process.
God bless you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mike. I'm getting heaps of questions here, so I think we would take the microphone back because we need to answer these questions, and once we run dry with these, then we pass this around back again to you. So I've got several of which I'm just compiling some of them and combining them so that we can ask one composite question rather than several of these. And I have here several people asking amongst us. Tonight we have an absolutely brilliant cross-section of the business sector. We have jewelers, we have travel people, we have hoteliers, manufacturers, the whole lot. So the questions are coming through, but some of them are common. So I've compiled one of each. Is a generic question to you, Mahesh. The people are asking, which is a very common question at this point in time, is yourself and your team do not have any political experience. You're not a politician, and none of your team members are politicians.
I believe that is the best qualification that we have. Last 71 years, the so-called experienced politicians, experienced political families have ruined this country. It's better you don't take any one of them and start new from here. But only experience that I have in politics is I also have voted. So that is the experience. At that particular time, I have been always Nirpakshiga. I was going through the policies given by so-called parties at that particular time, and I decided, okay, this time it should be this way. So that experiences, I believe, and the experiences of my team, who are coming from all segments of the society, who are experts, professors, doctors, engineers, are quite a big strength for us to run this country. Actually, it's not the politician who runs this country. That is where we have gone wrong. It should be the government service and the permanent secretaries of the ministries who should run this country. Here what happens, the President, Prime Minister, ministers and MPs who are above the law, they are trying to run this country which they do not know anything at all. So everybody said, only 225 who are qualified, who are not qualified. I don't give you the figures. So I'm confident that all of the officers who are with us are always much qualified to govern this country.
Thank you. Yet another question, which is again an interesting question. You are saying that there are lots of activities that are planned to bring about efficiency in the management, bring about efficiency in all aspects of governance. How are you getting the relevant funds to be able to do these activities? Where are the funds coming from, or how are you planning to generate funds? Let me ask Gamini, who would probably have an answer to that, because you were involved in compiling some of the economic information.
Thank you. Now, when we prepared our policy document, for the first time in this country, we came up with the draft policy framework on 1st of July. Why we did that was, we put it to the public and we asked the feedback from the public, what are their aspirations and what do they want the country to give back to the society. In fact, I am happy to see there are some of the people, those are in the audience, they have contributed immensely from that draft policy stage to bring this to a political manifesto which we launched yesterday. Now, talked about the development, basically we talk about 4-pillar development. First one is the bill capital. This is what most of the politicians, most of the governments for the last 71 years, what they have been doing. In fact, there were situations sometimes when we asked for a computer for a school, they say, no, we can't give you a computer, but we will give you a computer lab. That's a building, because that is where they can make money. So that is one area that the governments were concentrating very much on to build capital. Whereas our development, what we focus is on 4-fold. Build capital, human capital development, economic development, and environmental development. So these 4 areas, unless otherwise you tackle all these 4 areas in a balanced manner, there is no way that you can bring in an equitable development to the society, and like what he always says, to create a happy society. Under this neoliberal economic systems, we have been driven for consumerism. But now we have come to the end of it. Now our borrowings that has gone up to 83.6% is on loans. So how much more loans can we go ahead and borrow? And on top of that, there is a quite adequate infrastructure, bill capital is already in place. So the way we look at it is to raise funds. There are a number of ways we can do. First, if we look at the government sector, in 2008, Tissa Devendra Commission said that the required manpower for the government sector is 800,000. But if you check today, it is 1.6 billion after 10 years. Now it's whose fault? Whose fault? The government, successive governments, they see that this is the way to give employment to the younger generation. The damage, immense damage what is being caused by doing that is, one thing is, for a place where you need 1 person, there are about 4 or 5 people. And they become very unproductive. And they don't have sometimes even a place to sit and work. Then on the other hand, the little bit what the people could do also, they can't do because of the red tape and the bureaucracy coming across all these sectors. So we have, like what we said, we have studied all these for the last 5 years. When he comes out and says that I will reduce the number of ministries to 20, it is not just a number that is picked up. We have scientifically, we have studied, we have seen how we should restructure the entire government mechanism, what should be the departments, what should be the organization that should come under each ministry, so that there is homogeneous working arrangements can be established among ministries. There was a situation, probably maybe you all can recollect, that there was this famous garbage dump, Mitaramula garbage dump. When that collapsed, there was a Japanese team that they came here. And then after doing all their investigations, when they want to hand over all their equipment, they have to hand over this equipment to 4 ministries. So what would have happened? Now all this equipment must be lying somewhere without doing anything. Because the objective of the successive governments, being a party leader, they were interested in protecting their party. So they had to create positions and they had to create portfolios and make it as much as possible, even going up to 100 to make the ministries and to make it for their survival. Whereas what we are bringing in is, we are bringing in a structured mechanism, one. The second thing is, once we bring in that structured mechanism, by legislation, through once after the general election, by legislation we will make it mandatory that you cannot change that ministry structures. Then on top of that, to manage the ministries, the president has the power to appoint the cabinet secretaries. Cabinet secretaries are the chief executive officers to execute. If you really look at, the minister does not have to disburse even 1 rupee. So it is hand in glove, the secretary and the ministers, that they play this out. So like that, when we look at these 4 areas, there are a lot of areas where you can bring in new technology, digitization, maybe Asa can talk about it, the network systems, you can bring in and enhance the efficiencies. That is one. Then the second thing is, we won't say that we are not going to get any foreign loans. No, we may have to, but it is only on very, very selective basis to ensure that the bare minimum loans are required. Let me tell you sometimes one project that most of you all are probably fond of. That is the Colombo City Beautification Project, which is a feather on cap of one of the candidates. You will know the reality behind that. Now, they have done all the walking paths, they have done all the beautification areas, but the sea outfalls were not done. Sea outfalls were not done. Now, the impact of not doing these sea outfalls is the flooding takes place when there is rain. And for just one pumping station, see how the World Bank and the other people, how they manipulate. Some of our officers are also part of it. For one pumping station, the cost is 1.5 billion rupees. And once they did the study, after commissioning the pumping station, the highest flood level can be reduced just by putting 1.5 billion rupees. Highest flood level can be reduced only by 3 inches. Only by 3 inches. I am not exaggerating, I can give you the project details. Now to see, have you all done a feasibility study? How many houses are affected in this 3-inch area? No one has done a study. So now this is how our money, borrowed money, loans that they have been spent on so-called development projects. So this is what we are not going to concentrate very much on the big capital development, but we will put lot of emphasis in developing yours and ours future generation, our children, for them to be world-class citizens. That is our focus. With that, and developing the industry base, economic base for the poorest of the poor, agricultural community, fisheries community, we will ensure to help to uplift their standard of living, not just the top 5% of the society, to increase their GDP just by $10,000 to $12,000. So automatically, once this base is increased, that will help automatically to generate more opportunities, more conducive working environment for the other communities as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Ramin, for that. Something related, but it's probably more Kamal's area of expertise. The next question is on education. The question is, we have quite a large population of the age group between 18 to 25 in this country. What is their future? What do you see, or what do you plan to provide them with suitable educational facilities, so that they have something to look forward to, something to think about their future, and not have this brain drain that we have had during the last several years. What are your plans, or what are your intentions in that area? So to keep these people happy, satisfied, and train them for the future needs of this country.
Okay. Thank you for the question. Let me start with some numbers. I think every year you have about 350,000 young toddlers entering the formal education system. And by the O-level stage, out of them, about 35 to 40,000 drop out. I think if you want to find them, you can go to the prisons in Sri Lanka. 70% of the inmates in all our prisons comprise of those who drop out from the school system. Then about another 300,000 or thereabouts sit the O-level exam. About 65% of them get through and proceed to the A-level stage. So you will have, I'm talking of the students who sit for the first time, these exams. Then you will have about roughly another 200,000 plus who will sit the A-level exam. And in recent times, the numbers who get through and become eligible to enter local universities has increased. It's about 170,000. And you will see at every step of the way, we introduce dropouts before O-level, after O-level, and even after A-level. The state university system can accommodate only about 31,000 entrants to the university system. And out of them, I have the numbers. Let me just there's a reflection of a huge social injustice that is taking place with especially the numbers who sit in the art stream. Out of these numbers, about 105,000 are studying only in art stream. In Sri Lanka, we have about 10,193 or 4 schools in the country, and only 1,029 schools teach science stream subjects. So 9,000 schools, they don't have access to science education. So here we are creating a big issue. With these kids who do not have equity in access to, on the one hand, quality education, they also don't have access to science education in most schools. These, if you look at the numbers, we have 4.1 million student population, and only 1.6 million students have access to science education. Now, if you look at the future in the making, the fallout of or what is in the making out of fourth industrial revolution, right? Many jobs are going to be transformed, right? And some will disappear. New job opportunities will emerge, and most of them will be in this area. So we have not paid much emphasis on STEM or STEAM education. I think that is one focal area we are looking at. To provide access to all the schools in the country in stages, to provide them with the best of education that is provided in the best schools in the country. How do we do that? I mentioned about 10,190 odd schools. Now, out of this, there are about 5,000 schools where the student population is below 150, right? So we can categorize, and in stages we can connect them with digital technology today, because you don't need it's relatively less expensive than maybe a few years ago. With this type of technology being provided, we would want to transform these schools to human resource development centers, not mere schools. Because if you see in any village, you'll find a school which is only being used for 6 hours a day. 18 hours, these buildings are idling, right? So once we provide digital, through digital technology, the ability to download and deliver the same school lesson, classroom session that is conducted in the best school, the teacher can also act as a facilitator, right, and provide the equity or the same quality education at every stage.
If I may hold you there, so the schools, the plan is for these schools to be transformed into training centers of some sort, so that additional, apart from the regular curriculum, they'll have the opportunity to be trained in other skills.
Definitely, yes.
Through digital, through the introduction of digital technology.
Yes, I'll come to that. The first session will be, as usual in a school, the formal education from primary to secondary will take place from maybe 7:30 to 1:30. But afterwards, we are planning to introduce vocational training and various other skills development courses, and provide, allow access to even the school dropouts, right, from the villages, to have access to these training programs. And also there will be another category, that is, we will also identify the resources that are available in the vicinity of that village and tailor-make certain programs, training programs, so that they can add value, maybe agricultural produce, to add value within the village itself, so that they don't have to move elsewhere. And also look at the number of unskilled labor and the housemates who leave the country and go and toil themselves in countries like in the Middle East, etc. I think these programs can address some of those issues as well. Maybe offer them courses such as caregiving and even nursing. Now, nursing will require some practical training as well. So there can be two components. The part one can be the theory part, which can be delivered in this Human Resource Development Center, and direct them after qualifying for after getting through the first stage or the part one, they can proceed to a place which has to be arranged. I think there are certain centers under the technical colleges, NITA and such institutions. So they can be provided with such facilities to train them initially for the practical sessions, and then from there they can be assigned to the nearest hospital for further training. So this way we can add value to their skill set. And now we have about 1.5 million to 2 million expatriate Sri Lankans who are working overseas. And out of them, about 90% are falling into this category: unskilled laborers and housemaids. And mind you, they remit $7.2 billion every year. Right? So I'll digress a bit to give you a sense of what this 7.2 billion means to the economy. We import, our imports are around $22.2 billion annually. Our exports are only $11.8 billion. So there's a gap of about $10.4 $10.4 billion US dollars deficit. And out of this 10.4 billion US dollar deficit, the worker remittances, they sent about 7.2 billion, which means we are still short of another 3 billion rupees. And that is also part of our continuous borrowings every year. And the borrowings keep mounting. So now if we can add value in terms of making these unskilled laborers to either semi-skilled or skilled categories, their earning capacity will either quadruple or it will jump, many times over, right? So what will happen to the 7.2 billion? It will go up, it will increase in a very short span of time. So whatever we need to invest, we can recoup in stages, in the short term as well as in the medium to long term, right? So what we are proposing is that kind of a human resource development or human capital development program to be offered at the village itself, so that they do not have to move. Now, this will address, it's like a silver bullet in my explanation, silver bullet solution. When this happens, the clamor to get into popular schools will diminish, right? Then the competition in getting the kids to go through this year 5 scholarship exam will also diminish, right? Because every student will have equal access to a quality classroom session that is conducted in the best school in the country. Now, I said about the afternoon session, the vocational training and skill development sessions. Now, I think Gamini earlier mentioned that we have a bloated public service with 1.6 million state employees. We can redeploy some of them without, sacking them or getting them to leave the service. We can redeploy a large number of those excess employees who are forming the excess to become facilitators in the human resource development centers, so that they will also learn some, marketable skill set in the process. And they have to be trained, of course, that should happen. So we will address another issue there. Then also the numbers that I mentioned who do not have access to science education. Such divides also can be bridged in this process.
Yeah, if I may stop you there. When it comes to education, you explain one area of education, the skill development, upskilling this group of people, this age group. When it comes to science education and the university education, which follows from there on, what are your plans? What are the plans that you propose to have in increasing the intake of university students? Would there be? This is going to be very specific. You don't have to give me specific answers, but in general, would there be any grants to facilitate students entering universities, helping them out through the university process? So what is your plan, what is your thinking on that area? This aspect which you explained is only upskilling, skill development, vocational training. Right?
Yes, actually there is a proposal here to introduce what you call 50 technical oriented university affiliated institutions linked with also the technology parks that are there, right? So that they will gain, these are public-private partnerships on PPP basis. Mm-hmm. So that's broadly what I can explain.
Okay. All right. Okay. That's good enough because I don't think there's policy or detailed policy formulated at this stage so that you can spell out details. That's good enough for the time being.
Yeah, there is also something very significant I must share. If you look at the labor force participation in the country, it's at a very low 52%. Now, there are 16.2 million adults who are in the working age in the country, but only 52% of them are only employed, actively contributing to the economy. 48%, that's 7.8 million people are not in the workforce. So in this process, we can bring at least maybe another 1 to 2 million out of them into the workforce. So the moment they start contributing to the economy, our GDP also will increase, I think, proportionately. So that way, when the GDP goes up, their revenues, the individual revenue generation capacity of the individuals also will increase.
Thank you for that. Changing gears slightly, we'll move into a different area because I have several questions, which is a very popular question, I believe. It's to do with, I think the word corruption is very common here. Everyone knows about it, everyone talks about it. There's rampant corruption, misuse of funds, wastage of funds, wastage of resources right across the board. Right across the board. Every single person whom I have met comes out with this. What specific methods or processes that you propose to have to minimize this and eventually to eliminate this waste, which is costing the economy heaps and heaps of money? If I can ask Mahesh and then Kamini to elaborate on that.
In fact, that is the very reason I think our organizations were formed, to ensure there is no corruption in this country. But definitely what we have observed, experience is the poor leadership has created all these issues where so much of expenses to maintain them and their families and their staff had been the major issue in this country. It is not only considering the amount that they take out from us. So once we reduce our cabinets, once you reduce our staff, once you reduce their services or the maintenance time, there's been definitely quite a big number of money is saved. So that is to be utilized for the public requirements. Secondly, when we do not encourage one single type of proposals for any projects to be taken for granted, so I believe we go for normal tender procedures with the real, proper, selected, educated, committed people are handling all these things. We can make sure that corruption is minimized and in time to come it will be made sure we really do well in that. So that is the best thing that I am proposing and looking at. When the president is clean, when he is committed, I believe by example of leadership, the others will have to follow that. So that is why we are proposing an internal audit team under the president. Not only by just having with the treasury as of today. I don't say that they don't work, but to maintain the independence of and transparency of all what we do, it has to be audited, monitored through the.
So what you're saying in general is there'll be a very clear process of evaluating a project and being transparent right through the evaluation process, and then once it is a project or any other activity started, it will be continuously audited and it will be transparent. Everyone can see what's happening, and everyone will be able to contribute to the areas that you're planning
Yes.
to have to control the efficiency of that project. Would you like to add anything?
Let me elaborate a little bit on the same point. Now, as I explained, the COO of the establishment is the Minister Secretary. Now, Minister Secretary is governed by AR and FR. Those are very structured methods to ensure that there is certain controls are being made. But above that, according to the Constitution, above that, Minister Secretary is supposed to carry out the instructions given by the Minister. That is the constitutional right. So where does he stand? Now, this is what we were talking about. Yesterday, Mahesh elaborated that in detail, and he said one country, one nation, one law. So one law means that should apply even to the minister. He cannot be accepted. Right now, although the secretary is accountable and he can be taken to task, not the minister. The famous case is one of the topmost civil servants, Lalit Vilatunga's case. What has happened? What has happened? He could have easily got away with that if he said if the instruction was given by the respective line minister, which he did not want to do. So this is one area. What he was talking about is this is a long term. Once we have the power in the parliament, we have to bring in these legislation amendments. But having said that, even short term, immediately, the internal audit divisions of the departments can be directly accountable to the Presidential Secretariat. Right now, internal audit division is also answerable to the same person, that is to the Secretary and the Minister. So these are little things, little tweaking which we could do, which can immediately give major results. Talking about the National Planning Commission, this is not something new. National Planning Commission has been in existence for last so many years. But do we execute plans according to what National Planning Commission speculates? No. All these are unsolicited proposals that is being brought up, and where there is fast money, kickback is there. So those things should stop. That should be governed based on the overall country's development plans. If we can do these type of little things, plus bringing the efficiency to the government sector and creating a conducive environment for the business community to perform. Right now, it is very much driven by service industry, which should not be. There are a lot of raw material that is available. I'll tell you a simple example. I can mention the name. Ceylon Mineral Sands Corporation. For the last so many years, Ceylon Mineral Sands Corporation, they are selling this mineral sands in raw form. I'm not sure the figure, probably maybe a ton, maybe about $100 or something like that. But if you really refine it, maybe 1 kilo can get much more than that. There was a very good civil servant, Mr. Asoka Piris. He was put in to handle the Mineral Sands Corporations. When he took over, there was about 1.2 billion OD. And within 6 months' time, he settled the OD. And with Professor Ilya Peruma from the Peradini University, he worked out a plan to set up an operation to produce, refine mineral sands to export. What happened? Within a matter of 3 months, he was transferred. Right? And if I mention you the name who took over, you all know what type of a group that the new person who took over. So this is what matters. It's not that our people are not capable. There are good people who can do it. But the environment, conducive environment should be created by a person who has no other malice to protect their own party, but who wants to deliver results. This is what we are talking about.
That leads to another question which has come from the audience. A question says, will you be changing the Article 52 subsection 2 of the Constitution to make politicians liable for their actions?
That is one of the priorities. That's why we say one country, one law, meaning the president, the prime minister, the minister, no one will be above law in this country. Whether it is 52 or 55, it has to be done as parity.
Thank you. That's excellent. Coming along the same lines, can I also ask you, because this question came up again and again, is when you say one law for everyone, does it mean that the laws, what about the laws that, the differentiation in laws that we have for different ethnic groups, different areas of the country? Are you going to uniform that and say, this is one country, one set of people who are Sri Lankans, and one law will govern all of them? Are you referring to that area as well?
There are traditions, historical events. History has brought Sri Lanka to this level. So if somebody try to change everything overnight, just say one law, one country, and get rid of everything, it will not do any good to us. So there are still, even now at this particular moment, discussions are going on among those committees as well. They have found someone not in the US context, which we have been practicing. So we are still allowing at that particular moment to develop people dialogues, discuss and come back with solutions on how to suit those into the new laws that we are proposing.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you. The next question is about the judiciary. We are still in the area of law. The independence of the judiciary. Now, this is again a very topical issue. There are very clear evidence that this is being violated. This is not in existence as at present. What measures would you take to bring about that change where our judiciary is completely independent of political interference? How would you change that mindset and that structure which is in there now? What measures would you take to change that? Because I think that is in the minds of many people over here.
Okay. Right now, according to the authority given to President, other than the Auditor General, to appoint any of the high-ranking officers, there are no academic qualifications. This is the reality. This is the reality. You can appoint anybody. You can appoint someone from a private part to be the chief judge. That happened during certain times. You can appoint a constable to be the IGP. You can appoint a soldier to be the army commander. This is the reality. But to some extent, because the sanity prevailed, there were certain people of certain caliber was selected, although there would have been certain situations, the political interest, at least of some standards. The same goes with the diplomatic missions. It is the authority of the President, sole authority of the President to appoint. What we propose is, if we are to appoint, first one is that when the Constitutional Council was formed, earlier it should have been 7 to 3. But whereas the parliamentarians was against that time, they wanted parliamentarians to be 7 and the 3 to be from the public. So that defeated the purpose. What we propose is a transparent mechanism, that through the transparent mechanism, the people of high standard in the society, for example, if it is the chief judge to be selected to the bench, it should be done by an independent commission, which consists of probably maybe, the composition, the details we have to work out with concurrence, maybe some of 3 senior chief judges, and maybe some people of high eminence from the society, a group of panel that is appointed, and transparently they call for applications and they should select the people for those positions. It could be diplomatic postings, it could be people of high ranking, Army, Navy, Air Force commanders, It could be the Supreme Court judges, it could be the chief judge, all these two things. If we bring in impartiality, automatically the law will prevail. Right now, I don't have to repeat, it was the current president himself said, how many times the previous chief judge came to his house and pleaded to retain him. Why? Because it was one individual who can decide. But here what we are talking about is a system change. It is not depends on Mahesh, X, Y or Z. It should be an independent system that should take the country forward.
So what you're saying is there'll be zero interference. There'll be zero influencing of the judiciary.
Exactly.
Right. Thank you for that. Right. There was a survey undertaken about a month ago. 147 people were across the board surveyed, and they were asked, what are your most pressing issues right now? And 90% of that group said, we want judicial independence, or the judiciary, the independence of the judiciary, eliminate corruption, and the governance should be absolutely transparent. So transparency in governance. You have already answered two of them. With regard to the transparency in the governance process, what procedures or processes you will put in place so that all activity is transparent right across the board to the public? If you want, you can access any information. If you want any information about a contract, any information about a project that is being proposed, will that information be completely transparent so that the public will have, of course there are certain areas that public should not have access due to security reasons or other reasons, but in general, would there be access to that type of information so that all your activities will be 100% transparent?
Well, we should recognize whatever it is, some good things the government has done. When this government came into power, they introduced one of the very strongest acts, the Right to Information Act. It is one of the best among the world, one of the best which at a very high level that the transparency is protected. Now, with that Right to Information Act, lot of information we can have access. So if any one of you all, right now even a new government comes, we don't have to create a separate transparent system. If you let the judiciary and the legal system to run independently, and if we can educate the people how to make use of the powers vested with them, this Right to Information Act, you can get lot of information that may help as citizens to put this country back on track. So these are very little things we have to do. Ensure impartiality of the law and order, and have proper systems to govern the systems, and have transparent mechanisms, and especially what we are talking about is even the government structure, it should be governed through KPIs, and if the government ministries, the secretaries or the chairmen, if they can't run the system according to what they have agreed upon, then they answer. So it is a matter of creating, rather than trying to create whether the transparency is here in this deal, that deal, it is across the board having a proper system so that everyone will have access to the information on need to know basis.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Okay. I'm having heaps of questions here, but time will be a factor. Now, there is a question which relates to improving efficiency across the board again, whether it is a government institution, a department, or general efficiency of activities in the country. Now, the question is, how would you in today's context, there are lots of technology that is available to bring about these changes so that we can improve efficiency in all areas of business, in all areas of activity that we undertake. Can you very briefly explain to the forum here the introduction, what types of technology can be introduced to bring about this change and bring about this increase in efficiency that we are all looking for?
Yeah. Introduction of systems have been going on in the public sector and private sector and so on. And especially in the public sector, the main deterrent is obstacle is corruption, because they don't want the systems to operate, because if it is automated, then the ability to corruption or make money is reduced. So that is the main obstacle. Otherwise, enough systems, software and so on is available for things to be done even without human interference. But now if you look at the police system, I was driving from Jaffna one day to Colombo. I had some work in the morning, and we were speeding a little bit, and we were stopped by the police. And then there is no system for us to pay this fine. What happens is I have to leave my license there and come to Colombo, and next day I had to send somebody to faraway place, I think beyond Anuradhapura, to collect the license. So one of my friends called him and said, give some money, and said, right, go ahead, that's the main answer. So that is the way it works. Now if this is automated, now this problem, even today, I have brought it up even with the bribery commissioner. You must have in the police a system where if you are fined now, in the US, if I drive speed, they give me a ticket and then I send a check to the bank. I don't give my license or anything, I just come home and send a check. But here, you have to go back to the police station, then go to the post office, get a receipt, take that to the police station to collect the license. Now, I took this up some time back, but it doesn't happen. It is a very easy thing to do. A payment can be made, your fine can be paid even by your phone, through your phone. It can be automated, but they wouldn't agree to that. So it is just one example I mentioned, but it happens everywhere. You go to get a building plan done, right? If it is automated, they will be very unhappy because it doesn't work with them. So, as you said, if the corruption can be controlled or minimized, then the systems can be in place and they will work well. Okay?
Yeah, so what you're suggesting is we need to change the mindset of the people so that building efficiencies into systems would not this becomes a part of their source of income. Now, if you tap into that part or reduce that source of income, those people will everyone will get affected. So how would you balance it up? So on the one hand, you introduce technology, you introduce efficiency, which will have an impact on the current days. People are used to that source of income. Where do you balance it out?
Well, that's a bit of a difficult task because it's coming from the top, from the ministers, as he said, they are above the law. But even people within the law, they also practice the same thing. I think as if you look at these secretaries who are accountable, when some contract is given, as it's true the politicians make money, but the secretaries also very much benefited. So the top person who is accountable, he also makes money, and the whole thing goes down up to the PN's level.
So is the solution in that case is to pay a fair wage, a fair salary or a wage to all these people so that they'll be happy doing their task or the job and not resolve or not enter into this type of corrupt practices?
Well, it has been going on over the years because there was a value for a rupee some time back. Maybe if you look at what you could purchase, when I purchased my first car, I paid only 500 rupees and took the car. So today, 500 rupees you can't even buy a packet of cigarettes. So that is the over the years, in the 71 or 60 years, they have brought down devalued the rupee, and the rupee has no value now. So that is where the problem is. Now people have to make extra money somehow, otherwise they can't live. The problem, if you look at the government budget for government salaries and pensions, is also a big burden on the government. So I don't know how you can double maybe to take care of the expenses, to what extent the salaries can be increased, and where to find that money. So that's again another challenge.
But I suppose that challenge, part of the solution is when you prevent this rampant corruption, wastage, that will have some revenue coming back to the system, which can be utilized to pay a fair wage to the working people. So I think everyone understands that, but the issue is how that's a huge change and a huge challenge. And do you have any processes or plans to make that change?
90%, I think I would like Rami to make some comments.
Well, it is a chicken egg situation. And you can't have one single-handed approach and say that you can stop corruption. And on the other hand, even if you say that if you pay fair wages that they will stop corruption, no.
Why not?
Because the human expectations keep on increasing. I can remember when we passed out as engineers, young engineers, our salary was 800 rupees, right? So when we passed out, we did not have expectations to buy a car for the next 5 years, 10 years. But nowadays, any engineer who passes out from the university, you ask within 1 year they want to buy a car. How can they buy a car? Not by legal means. Recently there were recruited customs officers to the customs department, and each one had paid 3 million rupees as bribe to get into to be a customs officer. But they wanted to recover that 3 million, and within a year they want to have a car also. Right? So there are two types of corruption. One is the people, those who corrupt the system. This is what we have to bring in the law and order and ensure giving impartiality to the law to operate, and you have to catch the top fellows. Not the low level of people to someone who has taken 5,000, 10,000 rupees. Then automatically the people, those who got corrupted through the system, they will fall in line. And they will accordingly reduce their expectations. Not only that, that's why I'm trying to say that this is a totally integrated problem. Right now, if you really look at any average family, parents, they spend about 40% of their education, their money for children's tuition. Now that itself has become another corrupted industry, and people have to ensure that they make money to pay for that whatever the best of the best possible education. But the irony of it is, having done that, and then they themselves realize that this is not the country for their children to live. And they say, you better leave this country. And then what have you achieved as children, parents? What have they achieved as children? So we cannot just give a prescription, this is how you can stop this. All these are totally integrated. This is why we say our development plan focus on 4 major areas.
Thank you. Thank you. Now, I must also inform the people here that one of our panelists, he is sick, as you can see. Everybody's coughing and going through this period of sickness, down with the flu. So he was unable to attend. He's Mr. Gamini Vijayasinghe, who was the former Auditor General, who should have been on the panel, but he called me about 20 minutes ago. He was planning to come, not 20 minutes, 20 minutes before we started. And he said, look, I won't be able to sit in today because I'm sick, I'm unable to get off the bed. So we are restricted in answering some of the questions which relate to the economy and the plans associated with that. So I have a couple of questions on foreign debt, micro and macroeconomic policy, etc., which will be answered to you through email. If you may provide me with that email, I will get Gamini to respond to you on these two particular questions. So you got to bear with us because it's the circumstances beyond our control, but we will endeavor to pass it on to the panel and then get the responses that you are looking for. Now, there is another very interesting question, and still more coming through. Thank you. This is something for the panel in general, but any one of you may answer this. The question is, why isn't your party getting enough exposure through the popular media? Now, you might have issues that you may want to explain to the people as to why the message is not getting across to the why the popular media are not giving enough prominence, enough coverage to the party.
Sri Lanka is a very interesting country. The political parties belongs media. Or the media belong political parties. So it is either way the same. So we are not a political party like two big parties, and we don't have any media supporting us. Whether it is government or private, it is equal for us. So that is the very reason that we are not getting that exposure. Assistance even in our campaign, for we put across our ideas, our proposals, our policies to the public. So we are losing in that aspect. But we are expecting all the way, inviting our people to take it by word of mouth. The public can explain what we are trying to do. So that is the answer from my side.
Is there an issue on the side of funding? I believe I heard it through the grapevine that funding is an issue.
It's also
is restricting your activities to some extent.
Yes. It's like we don't have robbed money, as I said at the beginning. When you have robbed money for many years, you can spend. And you can come to power and earn again. And keep on spending and earning. They will never correct the system. But for us, yes, we will have a funding issue. We have given 2 accounts, and people who love this country, who needs a change, they are only sending and contributing us money. So we are very carefully using each and every cent that we get, and we ensure that we are responsible for that money, and we ensure that this transparency is maintained on what we get. That is our policy.
So can I take it as a official appeal for whoever who is generous enough to give you some funding?
Thank you very much.
Well, I think when I started, I said this is not our party. We are not here to come and convince you all. We all are part of it. So if you all think it is your responsibility, please do contribute, because as Mahesh said, funding is very, very tough and very, very difficult. So whatever the little way that you can show your appreciation, the effort that we are trying to put in to make this country a better place for you, your children and our children, it is your responsibility. Thank you.
I think we have probably running out of time, but I will just make two more questions or throw them at you. One is about rural women. What plans and processes you have in place to support rural women, whether it may be agriculture, whether it may be rural industry, whether it may be cottage industry? In what form or shape would you propose to support these people who are, I believe, a large number of people out there?
Why only rural women?
All women accepted, but the question is in particular.
Let me
women.
get an entry point this way. When you really look at right now at the workforce, at the entry level to the universities and some of the faculties, even up to 75 to 80% it is female at the entry level. But when you really look at the workforce, whether it is private sector or whether it is government sector, the female contribution drops down to about 32%. This is again another problem what Kamal mentioned about the unemployed. It's not that they are not employed. Why it happens, especially, Sri Lanka being a country where it is mostly a mother takes the responsibility of the home front, and mostly we males, we think that it is not our responsibility. So mother is saddled with the responsibility of raising children. However much you educated, there are so many people whom I can share you, professionals, those who have given up their jobs just to stay back at home and look after the children. That is one. Then the second category, the amount of hassle which he touched during his speech, the amount of hassle that the female has to go through when they go through public transport. If you just go through one day, you will realize how irritating it is. So because of that, also the female participation drops down. But it is the responsibility of a responsible government to ensure that these females are keep occupied in the workforce. So for which, forget about whether it is rural or metropolitan, we are developing number of different methods to see how female can be occupied, ensure that their occupation level is maintained at high level, like maybe probably working from home, maybe giving flexi times. There are a number of things it's being discussed. That is for the general category. Now the rural folks, yes, this is the same category of people, those who are either they don't have any other way of living, because there are 42% of the population depends on agriculture, and their daily income is less than 320 rupees. 42% of the population of this country. And out of that only, sometimes the farmers, they send their housewives to Middle East. There are a number of ways that you can ensure that those people are occupied and they become more productive in the working environment. Now, for example, right now I'll give you a practical example which my wife being an engineer, she was involved in a particular project where what they did is they got hold of about 100 females, those who were trying to leave this country to go as domestic aids, got hold of them and found a sponsor and trained these 100 women to be professional house painters. Construction sites to be house painters. Right now there's a dearth of people, skilled people. And you won't believe At the end of that 6 weeks, 4 to 6 weeks training period, all of them were recruited to major construction companies. And it is a good situation for them to be in. Even if they work in Colombo, they can go back at least once a month. They can keep touch with their families. And some of them, few of them, they volunteered. They said, no, we don't want to work for a company. We can go back, and even if we stay at home and even if we work, we can find better employment and be with the family. That is one side. And another very important area which we are talking about is, we say by legislature, agriculture should be, this country should be recognized as an agricultural country. It is not to say to go back to 1970s. Some of our opponents, they just try to create an image to say, no, this is again to going back to 1970s. No. Any developed country, even you look at countries like Japan, Korea, the most expensive commodity is rice. It is our staple food. So what we are talking about is, rather than just giving free fertilizer subsidy, to give them a guaranteed price. If you try to give them a guaranteed price, it is not the same old farmer. We can create agricultural entrepreneurs who can get into this industry. Young people who can get into this industry with pride and courage. So it is a way of looking at the outlook and changing the people's mindset to that they can be in the same village area. They don't have to come to the metropolitan areas, but create opportunity for them to have a dignified life.
So are you saying that this has been created because our mindset is so entrenched in getting things free, and the moment you say you get something free, or I'm happy to give you something free, people latch onto it rather than putting their heart and soul and doing an honest job of work?
Now this is the easiest way to get the vote. The two main opponents, those who are contesting for the presidential election, both of them are talking about giving subsidies. Right? But do you know, right now, we send about 40 billion rupees for the fertilizer subsidy. But the yield, outcome is less than 40 billion rupees. So what have we achieved? Only CKD. Right. 20, if so, very good. But we know this is a long drawn path. We all have to work towards if we want to create a better future for our children.
Okay, thank you. Okay, last, I have a question here which has a slight flavor of an ethnic issue, so I don't want to bring it up because I don't think it is appropriate to bring ethnic issues into a forum like this. But it has another aspect to the same question, which is the destruction of archaeological sites and areas, heritage listed areas maybe. Are there processes in place, or do you propose to have plans to protect these areas of interest? Because it is, I think it is very near and dear to hearts of many people. Well, that the country is rich of archaeological resources and places of interest. What plans do we have to protect them and restore them and make them?
Well, there is already established proper guidelines for protecting archaeological sites. So it's not a question of not ensuring that it is being implemented. That is one. Having said that, it is more than the archaeological sites. The religious disharmony happens because of some of the new constructions that is taking place, irrespective of whether it is Hindu, Muslim, Buddhist temples. But again, there are guidelines and regulations that is already being drafted. So if the politicians does not interfere, and if they just allow the existing places to be kept as it is, then most of these problems won't be there. I myself is a Buddhist. But if you really see that if you go to most of the places, right, if there is a bow tree, then after 3 months' time you will see that there's a temple coming. Is there a need? I mean, if we are Buddhists to that extent, if we practice as Buddhists, if we practice to that extent, we will not have this ethnic disharmony. So here, what we have to say is very simple thing: just implement the law and order.
Thank you. Thank you, Damini. Any other short questions which one you may like to... Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. This is...
I actually think you shouldn't encourage too many of these written questions from a small forum. People should have the courage and stand up and answer the question. So I have a question, if I may.
Yeah, you may.
General, I've been a follower, admirer of yours for a long time. Not so long, actually. But I was very concerned soon after the April bombing.
Can you speak a bit louder, please? Oh.
Yeah, having been an admirer of yours for a few years and liking a lot of things that you've said, I was very concerned about something that you said soon after the April bombs, or you were reported to have said. I'd like you to confirm whether you said it, and if you did, to give the rationale, and if you didn't say that, I'd like to find out what you actually said. Soon after the bomb, you were reported in the press, I can't remember which paper, as having said the Minister of Muslim Affairs, Religious Affairs, should not be a Muslim. That's how it was reported, and it's a Sri Lankan newspaper, so maybe that wasn't what you said. But either way, I'd like you to answer that.
I exactly cannot remember the same word that you said, that I have said Muslim minister should not be a Muslim. But I could remember something like this, what I said. When we were young at school, when we look at that in the parliament and the number of ministers, I could still remember we had a minister for parliament and religious affairs. And it was so open at that time, it was Mr. M.H. Mohammed. I was studying at Ananda, and he's from Boral electorate, and we knew him in that sense. So that I was spoken at one audience saying that. So I said, if Mr. M.H. Mohammed could have been the Minister for Buddhism also at that time, definitely even today, he should not have so many ministries for each and every religion. That was my idea. Divided again. So the Buddhist minister has his own interest, and he never coordinate, cooperate, or don't look left or right with the others, whether it's Christian or the Muslims, Islamic. So those are the reasons that we were divided and we had to fight each other. That's what we were suffering. I said something like that. That's what I meant.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to make a couple of very quick points on corruption and education, related in my opinion. Mr. Kamal was talking about a lot of figures, and I accept a lot of them, actually. I've also looked at this. I think we should look at the other end of the spectrum. Out of these 10,000 schools that we have, we had 433 schools where there wasn't a single application for year one, 270 odd where there was only one. In actual fact, there's 1,100 schools out of that had 5 or less. Now, it's very easy to keep those 400 schools up a grade, you know. And I think it has a lot of bearing on corruption in the country, because what is happening is that we teach our 5-year-old children to lie. So, you know, when you start at that age, it's very difficult to balance this, because we can't change people of our age. I mean, in this corruption that we talk about with Karnaratna, if you are happy to pay that cop whatever, I would say that you're part of the problem, really, and that's why we should focus on the young.
Can I have one more question?
Do you have a specific question in that, or is it a remark that you?
I think people shouldn't be paying.
Yes, of course. Yes.
I'm 63 years old. So far, I haven't paid a bribe.
Sure.
I have offered a cigarette at a solicitor.
Yeah. No, I think it's a very fair point. It's a very fair point. I think we are responsible as general public to not to engage in that type of thing, and that's the only way to prevent it. By we giving these things, we are encouraging a bad system to prevail, which I accept your comment. Just make your questions very brief, please, because...
Very quick question from
Yes.
Now, once you assume the presidency, you will have the unenviable task of selecting the cabinet from either party, both of which are highly politicized. What are the criteria that you're going to use to select 20 ministers?
First, it is to 20. Then, of course, I have to do it in concurrence with the Prime Minister, whoever going to be the Prime Minister at that particular time. It's Mr. Vikramasinghe or Mr. Rajapaksa or anybody for that first 4 months.
And we know who they are.
Yes. So then,
You need their conference? You're going to conquer with them?
I have to discuss with them and come to a conclusion. These number of people are not accepted. I should be having the authority to refuse some of them to be appointed as cabinet
Would
ministers.
you have the authority?
Yes.
Yeah. And then would you get the support of the Prime Minister after that?
That is his problem. I understand your question. It's a tough task. It's a tough task. But when you are elected as the president, you are the president. You don't have to be worried about what the others talk about. I understand the constitution, I have to understand the authorities, but still you have been given the mandate by the people to do it, not to get another rock as the finance minister.
Thank you, Bhais. Thank you for that. And thank you, the panel. We got just 3 minutes. If you have any other short questions, you may ask them now, or we'll have to call it a day. It has been a long day, and as you know, the panel is pretty sick, down with the flu, and I myself, I don't want to get it, so I don't want to be very close to them. So the longer I wait here, the chances of me catching this is greater. So please keep it very brief.
I have a very, very brief question.
Can you?
I have a very brief, that's my short question.
Sure.
You addressed about 18 and above education,
Yep.
but you didn't address the nursery to A-level. We have a huge problem, the tuition culture that has come up, and that is actually killing the thought process, the thinking, the research, and that is also contributing to the brain drain. So I want to know what you all plan to do for that age group, where we focus more on going to school than going to tuition.
Fair question.
Okay,
Come on.
I believe there are different dimensions to the issues that you raise. When a child is born, I think the first party who discourages the child to explore is the parents, right? So the killing of creativity starts at home. Then it's at the school. Then you become an adult, you join any company, your boss and the institution will kill your ingenuity and creativity. So I think it's an element of social education is needed at every level, at the parents' level, and the teachers' level, and those who become like role models for kids to infuse that kind of thinking. Actually, that retards the creativity that leads to innovation, right, which happens at a particular age of any human being. Maybe when you are a child, your level of creativity will be one. As you progress, it keeps developing. So I think we need to promote creativity and various other soft skills and life skills, which the current education system is not addressing. That is also part of our focus in our policy framework. And then the other aspect is the early child care education. That has to be promoted. It's happening in a haphazard manner. So there should be some structured kind of governance structure to formalize what is being dished out to these small toddlers, and also the preschools. At that stage also, these same approaches, with some oversight responsibility, I think it should come under the Ministry of Education itself. That should happen. And then at school level, we can introduce many interventions to promote creativity. So I think they are all factored in this policy document. It's a long process. I don't think we can do it overnight, but everything has been captured in the policy document. I think you can go through that and ask further questions, maybe at a different opportunity.
Are you happy with that response? Do you have any other issues? I know education is a big issue, big burning question. You're okay with that?
Can I make a comment? Oh,
I think it's a very good idea to reduce the ministers to 20, if you can do that. But then we have 50, over 50 ministries, also a big burden in our country, so you may have to reduce that. Apart from that, we have something like 1,300 state-owned enterprises who also have the same facilities as ministries, such as, say, duty-free vehicles, and in fact, they don't even have to bother about annual reports, I heard. So this is just a comment. I don't know how you're going to handle all that.
Proportionately, it will be done.
Did you hear that? It will be done in a proportionate manner. Okay. So with that, I think we are home and dry very much at this point in time. But please feel free to send in your questions through either through email. I'm sorry. One more question, or through the website, which is being displayed here. So if you get into that and state your question, somebody either from the panel or from the resources available within the group will endeavor to answer those questions.
he wants to.
Okay, thank you very much.
Sorry, just one quick question. In 2015, the president who led the country for a victory in 2009 was sent home by the people of this country because of the corruption. And today you gentlemen are here because of the corruption of this country. But I didn't hear what kind of steps and actions would you all take for this current politicians who are in power with corruption allegations once you come into power, or in the due time we are going to plan ourselves to come into the parliament or represent ourselves. So what kind of fast action would be taken for these corrupt politicians to regain the money they have stolen from the public, or else to put them or bring them to justice? I would like to know what kind of action you all take, and I would really encourage you all to use that as a marketing tool, which will gain more publicity for you all.
Thank you. And even in our discussion, we have mentioned very clearly, we want to ensure there is an independent judiciary system here, without any political influence. So we ensure that judiciary will do the justice to the public by taking them to task. We're not going to stop anything. Whatever the assistance we have to be given them to expedite it will be done under our period.
But then again, sir, sorry, I'm thinking, because for decent people, you really do not need to direct them or govern, because they usually do their task by themselves, like you gentlemen, right? So we have been brought up in certain manners, we know how to conduct ourselves. But a person who has a deceiving mind or a crook, they will always find a loophole in the law as well. And currently we see this issue as well. This particular government was brought into power to bring these people into justice. But until 5 years have gone by, and what they always harp on is the judiciary system. System has failed us. That is why we are always looking forward. Is there any way that you will take action that it might be fast-tracked and the results will be seen soon? Because we want this to be done. That's what we wanted in 2015 as well.
When we said that we are going to have the most suitable, selected, committed judges who have been selected by those commissions to lead the judiciary, I believe they will be able to do it. Here what happens, they put their own people to ensure it is not being done. So our case, it will be done by the people who are really committed to ensure that we have the very clean judiciary system in the country.
So absolute judicial independence or judiciary independence would take care of that.
Including us. If anything has been done by us, then
I think what you require not just judicial independence, you need judicial integrity.
Absolutely. So with that, thank you very much, the panel, for your contribution, and thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you very much for making it a very interactive and a very informative evening.
Audio Jungle.